Hi, welcome back to the shop. Thanks for stopping by. This week's project, we are going to make a baby rattle. So I didn't show drilling these out, but what I've got here is a piece of 3/4 inch thick by 2 inch wide walnut, and it has 2.5 inch diameter holes. They're drilled 3 1/4 inches apart on centers. And I'm going to laminate some maple to both sides of it. And I'm just getting a little bit of glue on it here now to put it together, and I'm trying not to get too much around the edges of the holes so it doesn't squeeze out into the holes. Then I'm going to fill the holes about 1/4 of the way full, just with some dry, uncooked rice. That'll give us the rattle noise we want. This is just made out of some scrap wood, so rather than thin the maple down to make a perfectly square 2 inch by 2 inch blank, it is going to be a little bit wider one way, but I'll just turn the maple away. So just spreading the glue here on the other side, again being careful not to get too much glue around the edges of the holes. And I'm going to clamp it up and leave it overnight. Alright, so I left this overnight to cure up. It's all good now. So what I'm going to do is I've got my centers marked on both ends. I'm going to put it on the lathe, turn it around. I'm going to record how far I am here and here from this end. I'm not going to touch this end so that I will know exactly how far that is, because that's going to be important. Once I turn this and don't see these lines on here anymore, I need to know where my centers are. So we're going to put a tenon on this end, put it in a 4-jaw chuck, and then we can make the rattle. So the turning in this video is either being done in real time or sped up no more than 2 times. And it doesn't affect the lathe noise, so it's not shrill. I'm making this for friends of ours, little guy, who's 5 months old, and we haven't had a chance to meet him yet. But while I'm turning this, he and his mom are on the way for a visit, so we're pretty excited to see him. And there are a lot of pictures at the end of this video, and if you stick around to the end, they are certainly worth your wait. You get to see the owner in action. You see I put the tailstock back in this. It doesn't need to be there, just a little support, but it also centers the piece. So I used the original hole that was in the headstock in to make sure things were centered. All I'm doing now is relocating the edges and the centers of these holes. So to make each of these ends symmetrical, you'll notice I take a lot of light little cuts here and there, and all I'm doing is just setting across the top of it and trying to make sure that I'm as close as I can get without making a template. One thing that makes it a little difficult is that the intensity of the lights is different at each end of the lathe. So I've got a light that sits just outside the headstock and another one that's just in behind the tailstock coming in from each end. And they're not exactly the same brightness, and so they kind of distort the shape a little bit. But if you're wondering why there's so many little cuts here, little cuts there, it's just to try and bring things the same on both sides. I'm going to remark the centers of the holes on the inside again just to make sure I don't make a mistake. I didn't realize my camera shut off, so I didn't get the footage of just turning that little dowel off the end. But now everything's turned and it's symmetrical, and I'm going to sand it up to 800 grit, and I'll bring you back when we put on the finish. Alright, so everything's sanded up here now to 800 grit. Before I powder it off, I'm going to use some hot wax, which is food safe. Now for the important part. It does rattle. Yay. Well, if you're still with me, thanks so much for hanging around. I appreciate it. Thanks again to everyone who watches the videos and subscribes to the channel. I appreciate that a ton as well. If you like what you saw and you have not subscribed, please consider doing so. And leave a comment or a thumbs up or thumbs down at the end of the video. And we'll see you next time.